never slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this,
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another edition of the Weekly Review. My name is Mike Larkin, and by my side, as always, is my dude, the RWT Deadman, the one, the only, Mr. Paul Morales. How are you, Paul?
Oh, me. Hey, what's up, man? How you doing, man? I am doing well. Today is NXT Tuesday because we are recording on a Tuesday, so let's get going, man.
Well,
really good, great action tonight, by the way.
Let's just mention this before we even get into our topics. First of all, if y'all have not checked out the final episode of NXT on USA, and if this does not hype you up for next week with Punk talking about Ethan Page and Trick Williams, I can't wait for him to be the special guest referee. But two things I noted out of this NXT. Let's start it first with Wesley and Zachary Wentz channeled their inner Seth Rollins, Matt Riddle from 2 years ago. F-bombs, you piece of shit. You bitch, and he said, you better hope Gigi don't watch. They publicly acknowledged that Zachary Wentz and Gigi Jolin are fiance, a boyfriend and girlfriend, fiance, and everything that goes into the relationship. I was surprised that they went there. They really went there.
All right. Oh, my God. Dude, these two are going to kill it when they get in the ring. Without a doubt, Zachary and freaking Wesley are going to kill it when they get in the ring. I have no doubt that these two are going to go balls to the wall. 5-star match. Remember, 5-star, 10-star. 5-star, 10-star, 10-star, maybe even 20 stars. Mm-hmm. But these guys are really, really allowing them. I mean, Sean is really allowing them to just pull out their innards. All that frustration, all that anger, all that angst that they have in their bodies. I mean, literally, they're letting them just go. And I can't wait for it, man.
Me too. I mean, who would have thought that these guys who we've seen as the Rascals, who we've seen just always been that babyface team, and Wesley really owning up as a heel, Zachary Wentz really going up as that white meat babyface, the one like, oh my God, he's so hurt the fact that his friend turned on him. They have a great dynamic, and they've grown so much over the years, and especially doing it for Trey Miguel. The other thing I really did enjoy about this episode of NXT really heightened up Nathan Fraser and Axiom against A-Town Down Under, like who's going to turn on who, because both teams have had problems with each other. I think if there's a great tag team for them to wrestle, especially in St. Louis, and you're bringing in all the stars, A-Town Down Under, NXT OGs against Nathan Fraser and Axiom, that one has me hooked as well.
What I think is that we may actually get a double turn on the same night, and that would be so fucking crazy,
right? You
know as well as I do that would be so fucking crazy. But I don't put it past Sean to actually have sweet chin music, through a pane of glass, mm-hmm. Turning on Marty Jannetty, that kind of stuff.
Like the barbershop, yeah.
At the barbershop, you know what I'm saying?
I feel you. So that is another one that really was brought into my attention. But I think the big one out of the night, again, it was such a great night of action tonight. Everybody go back and check it out. But the big thing was Roxanne Perez and Julia had their great little in-ring press conference at the end. And then somebody came on the Titantron and said, I had a question. And it was none other than Miss Stephanie Vacker, talking about, hey, I have a question. Who am I going to be facing at the end of this match, and who do I have to defeat to become the NXT Women's Champion? This woman, everybody popped. If there was any way to introduce Stephanie Vacker, just shows. I mean, Julia versus Stephanie Vacker, Roxanne versus Stephanie Vacker. I don't care. Either way, this shows the integral part of who we're going to have one of the now new members of the division being surrounded on. Julia, Stephanie Vacker, let's go.
So Bully Ray actually brought up a really, really good point, and he said if Julia wins, mm-hmm. if Julia wins the title, where does Roxanne go from here? And he said, and I quote,
yes,
I say take her off TV until the Royal Rumble and give her an entrant into the Royal Rumble. Because one, it gives her some time away for people to appreciate that she's not there. but it gives her a little bit of time off, you know, to enjoy a little bit of a break, you know, from things, which I think is a good idea. I think if Julia wins, and that's kind of like where my mindset is going. I know we'll probably end up doing a little bit of predictions, but right now it's like in my mind, I see Julia winning, her and Stephanie kind of having like this little interaction. But I would like to see somebody else in that picture, but I'm just like not knowing as to who should be in that picture. Michin was actually good in NXT, which I would love to see her there. And back to something we had actually talked about before, at there being a mid-card title on the main roster. I'm hoping by the time we get to what the hell's the one in Saudi Arabia? What's the next one?
Crown Jewel.
Crown Jewel. Yeah, whenever that one comes about, yeah, that's what I'm kind of thinking about, them having a mid-card title, you know, for them, you know, because that roster on the main roster is actually on fire right now. Michin needs that. Michin should be the inaugural freaking either United States or Intercontinental champion. I mean, it's just bound and determined to happen. I thought she was going to win the women's North American title, but hey, I would love for this to happen.
I would just like to say I had to put this up because Paul reminded how we before WrestleMania and how you were watching those past videos, and we mentioned that you chimed in on the chat. You've been wanting this, and well, you're getting it. You are finally getting it. I'm just going to play it again just because this is what we touched upon. This is before WrestleMania. We talked about it, but Paul was so happy, so I'm going to bring this back up to him, and here we go.
We have official last super chat. Paul Morales, thank you so much for the super chat. I mentioned to Denise that I feel WWE needs a mid-card title for the women. So many women on the main roster right now, some still to come back from injury. Yeah, I think so, but
no. And listen, shout out to Paul. I'm saying no with this caveat. And it's funny, the person who finally echoed what I've been saying was the best person to say it, and that's Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch said, because I think that idea was presented to her, she said, no, we don't need more titles. We need better stories for the women that aren't using the titles as a crutch. And so I've always said that my original argument was like the roster is not big enough just to throw another title. But I also feel that way. And listen, I feel that way about the men. I understand why there are 2 world titles, but I don't think there need to be 2 world titles, 2 mid-card titles, and 2 sets of tag titles. I do not think that. I think that wrestling is at its best when you are competing for position or you're competing over, I just don't like that dude. I just don't like that girl. That's for me. So what I would like, if they introduced a women's mid-card title, I would like the stories to be better first to make that matter.
I agree. I'm like, I could take it or leave it either way, but again, like I do agree with the entire sentiment of that you just got to work on having storylines outside of that title, because it's a what's the word? It's like a crutch for some people, you know, where it's like, sure, you can use it to your advantage as much as you can to tell a story, but you need the psychology when it comes to the story other than the material.
Okay, so rewatching that again, because Paul, again, is very happy, as am I, that we're getting these mid-card championships. When I talk about stories around that, I look at it like this, like especially with NXT, and I look at it like this. Like you have, you know, what they're doing now with Fallon Henley and, you know, JC Jane and what's her face, Jasmine Nix. Like, I love what they're doing personally, and you said this, and I'll say this to you, and a lot of people feel this way. I like what they're doing with this group in NXT more than what they're doing with the Pure Fusion Collective on Raw. Not saying that Shayna, Zoe, and Sonya are bad, but what they've done right now, I'm kind of very meh on it right now. I'll be completely honest with you. there's a great thing that they can have with that story. And you got Jada Parker and Lola Vice up in the mix there. You also have had them go after Kailani Jordan, and that gets set up JC Jane going against Kailani Jordan. You have so many talents that are on the come up over there, such as the Izzy Dames, the Sol Rukas, and everybody in that front, the Brinley Reeses. Like, I like how we're also establishing those women. So there's many different things that we can have go for both the NXT Women's North American title and the NXT Women's Championship. So much like you said about what Bully said, I love to see Roxanne as a surprise entrant in the Rumble. We still have Cora Jade to come back to NXT. Let's see where they put Cora Jade. So there's so many people that they can really build up. They have such a crop right now to build to great stories for those ladies.
I think and Cam touched on it. You know, Cam shout out to fucking Cam Hawkins, him and fucking Alex. I love them both. But the only reason why I went back to this is because I mentioned it, but they actually touched on the one point that I've had issues with for a long time. It's storylines for the women. Mm-hmm. That's something that I think that needed to happen. And over the time that between then and now, which is about 6 months, has been this development for them to bring in not only what's going on with the women, but you could see it developing. Look at Michin. Michin's actually in the world title picture because she's trying to get back at Nia for everything that she did. You know, you also have Bayley. You also have Io on Raw, which again could be another crink in the armor with her and Kyrie, because as a tag team, yeah, they're good, but I still think individually there's still that presence that could happen. You know, that you can kind of see that little bit of friction, but not quite. It's developing, which is perfect for me, at least. Eventually down the road, we'll get Jade and Bianca to actually split up and do their own things individually. My point being is that there needed to be more stories to develop for the entire roster, but especially the women. So if that when they do have these mid-card titles, there's already a basis there. Hence why they started with the NXT North American, the women's North American title, because they needed that as their template to see how it works in NXT. Now you're going to bring it over to the main roster. Do I think there needs to be 2 of them? No, I think there just needs to be one. Same thing with the tag titles, and just float them back and forth. I still think NXT still needs their women's tag team titles back, because there's so many women that are there and so many developing tag teams that they need that back for them. So going forward, I anticipate this happening shortly after. I think they may get the announcement either before Crown Jewel or after or at Crown Jewel.
I think to add on to your point, here's why I also like, because we always talk about the NXT TNA involvement with talents. Like, we've seen Rosemary on NXT. Like, for me, and this is one that I'm very excited to see her sign with TNA. I think you could concur with me. The former Xia Li has signed to TNA, and Wendy Chu said is going to be on there as well. Run it back. Everybody's been putting up the match with Karen Q and Miss Wendy Chu against Xia Li from the Mae Young Classic. Like, that type of dichotomy, and the fact that Xia Li is there now and possibly seeing her on NXT TV again, I would be for. You have so many things that you could do with the cross-branded side of things. You could have so many women from Raw or SmackDown come down and challenge for that. And I think the perfect person to put it on thus far is Kailani Jordan, because she is so, again, she's establishing herself, and she has a great babyface feel and vibe with the crowd. So, I mean, with what they're doing there is awesome. So I'm excited to see not just the trajectory of those titles, but the women's storylines that we're going to get, because there's so many talented people. And 2 talented people I have to mention to you is CM Punk just had his birthday, since we did touch about Punk on NXT, and Roxanne Perez and Cora Jade, who is there. That's their wrestling father, if you will. They wrote "Happy Birthday, Dad," and in CM Punk's Instagram post, it's like, you know, this was nice when the kids are not behaving, when the kids are not misbehaving. And then you see in the card that they made, they wrote, "I'm old, I'm tired, and I work with children." And I popped huge, because
happy 100th birthday.
Happy 100th birthday, CM Punk.
Now, oh, you mentioned the NXT TNA thing, and TNA actually has a women's tag team title.
Yes.
You know, and it was good to see that the NXT women that went over there this past Thursday on Impact actually showed up to challenge for the NXT Tag Team Champions.
That's Kendall Gray and Carly Bray.
That was just going to say her name, but anyway, but yeah, those two. It's cool that we get that crossover promotion, and I would love to see still even more of bringing back those tag team titles to NXT, so this way they can come over and challenge, you know, women from there can come over and challenge, you know, WWE, and it, you know, vice versa. I think that's just something that needs to happen, and I hopefully eventually down the road TNA actually gets a mid-card title for the women, because I think that would be good for them too.
Oh, agreed. And especially when you have the liaison, Ariana Grace, being involved with both sides, I think that would be cool. And adding an additional women's
liaison,
the shenanigans, and
no shenanigans,
and the fact that you have Ariana Grace there and you have another mid-card title there would be cool. I mean,
I would never.
No, I mean, women's, I would never. It's so good. Go back and watch Anthony Corelli Santino and his daughter. It's hilarious. But no, they have to, just because I would love to see like a women's TV title or something. Because we've had a men's TV title there. We've had the TV title in TNA, but like a women's TV title or something of that nature. I think with the roster that they have now, they could definitely pull it off in TNA. Oh, so what definitely we can pull off, man.
And NWA is pulling it off too.
Yes.
NWA is pulling it off with a women's television title, you know, and again, back to templates of people that are doing it. They did it with they're doing it at NXT with the North American title for the women, and you already know we're gonna get it on the main roster. So again, back to something: will it float, or will it just be one individual or two individual titles? I just think it should. I think you have enough women on the main roster where you could float one back and forth the same way you're doing with the tag team titles. I just don't want an overabundance of titles, like both Alex and Cam said. I don't want an abundance of titles if there's not going to be enough storylines to go around for people.
Speaking of going around for people, this news we're going to talk about, because this news has been going around and people have been losing their minds. WWE SmackDown will be a 3-hour show starting in January. How do I feel about this? I mean, we had 3 hours at Raw, but I think with this right now at 3 hours at SmackDown on USA, I think with what we have, especially being on a Friday, going from 8 to 11 as opposed to 8 to 10, I think they have that ability just like to kick ass, because of the fact that, I'll say this right now, it's a struggle to watch for 3 hours, but with Raw, like how it has been and how they're struggling, you can kind of stay into it for 3 hours just because of the better booking and the better storytelling. So I think the same goes with SmackDown. So we'll see how it goes. And I
think for SmackDown though is like, it's a Friday.
Yeah, it's Friday.
You don't have to worry about kids getting home from school or having to get up, you know, on Tuesday morning for like Raw, get up for Tuesday morning and get to school.
Yeah. Now,
if Raw changes its time once it hits Netflix, if it goes on at 7 p.m. Eastern, you know, 4 on the West, it doesn't compete with Monday Night Football, but it also gets just before Monday Night Football gets on during the season, and it could be a lead-in for the NFL. I'm not saying it's going to be. I'm just saying that that's an idea. At least on my end, it makes sense, and especially for SmackDown, you could do it at 8 p.m. on the East and 5 on the West, and it still be early enough on a Friday for people to go to. We still have no idea yet what's going to happen with Raw, especially once it hits Netflix, on if it's going to be a return back to a 3-hour show. We just know starting next month it's gonna go to 2 hours, which is perfectly fine. It's perfect.
I think with what we have, and I've always said how this right now is such a great time to be a professional wrestling fan. I think with what we're going to get, and like you mentioned, Friday, because like I said, as a kid on Friday myself, I love staying up late, as we all do. But it's one of those things where it's just like, okay, You know, it's easier for kids nowadays, and also just it's the flow. I look at what we have with the presentation of professional wrestling on the WWE auspices, so to speak. I think that they will do just fine in this 3 hours because if what they're doing with 2 is any indication, I think adding that extra hour is also going to add some more spice and flavor to what we get with the Friday Night SmackDown product. And speaking of the product, we will go to more of the WWE product before we get into the SmackDown side of things because I have to mention this. And I know a lot has been added to it, but the Lucha Brothers have signed a multi-year with WWE and are headed to the main roster. So that story. Apparently what has come out now is, they haven't signed the contracts yet, and they're still employed and they still are contracted to AEW. I'm going to fully say this. I don't see them sticking around. I see them going there. You could put them in there against the LWO. You can put them in there against the Judgment Day. You can put them in there against any flipping tag team like Legado del Fantasma. Whatever the Lucha Brothers do, they have so many opportunities and options to go to the WWE. I think their AEW tenure has been great. I love what I've seen from them, but at the end of the day, as recently they haven't been used as much. But in this particular scenario, I think they're going to be on to greener pastures and they're going to go to WWE. What are your thoughts on the newer edge of this story that we've had with the fact that they're still signed to AEW?
It's oddly weird because Penta already said, I am 41 years old.
Right.
I'm already up there in age. I want to wrestle with my brother for another couple more years, at least 3 to 4. Dude's in his prime. Dude could still fucking go.
Oh, yeah.
He's in his prime. We see what CM Punk is doing. We see what AJ Styles is doing. And AJ Styles is one of those guys that takes pride in his body. Finn Balor's another one. He's already in his 40s. So these two in the WWE, in that development of getting their bodies in shape, because we already know how these two can go right now. Wait until they get into that system, and oh my God, they can just continue on until their late 40s, early 50s.
I think now we've
more so Penta. I mean, I know Ray's a little younger, but
yes. Now I will add this to you. If we've seen what they've done in Lucha Underground, especially Penta with like the matches with Vampiro. I mean, everybody goes back to the intergender match with him and Io Shirai from Ultima Lucha.
That'll be an interaction if we could get it on Raw. Oh my God, that'll be an interaction. Them just passing each other and looking at each other like, give me the head nod and then walk away. I want that.
We put the Lotus Tribe out to everybody out there. We put the Lotus Tribe out.
Exactly.
Oh, my Lord. Yes, it's early Lucha Underground, folks. So definitely go back and watch it if you haven't. But, yeah, no, his work as well as Phoenix, I think what we're going to have here is definitely something special. And Pentagon, I've always been a fan of Sato Miedo. And before we even got to see Phoenix and before we even knew that they were actually brothers. So I'm really excited to see that interaction as well, Mr. Paul Morales. And another interaction I want to add, I know I don't have it on the screen, but I'll put a photo here in this portion of the show. News also came out that internally on the NXT roster, Hikuleo. What are your thoughts on Hikuleo going to NXT? A lot of people want to see him part of the Bloodline storyline. What do you think of Hikuleo in NXT?
I think eventually he may actually get onto the main roster. But right now, if the concept is, and we saw it last week when the Bloodline actually ended up on NXT.
Yep.
Costing the Street Profits their tag team title match, next week, we just ended up seeing this interaction. Hikuleo goes there. What happens if they try and recruit him? What happens if, again, back to it joins all the brands together? I eventually see Jey Uso actually having this title for a little while, and we'll get to that again. We will get to that in a minute, but yeet, we will get to that. But right now, I would love to see him on there and get a singles title run, get a singles run in NXT, and eventually on the Bloodline too. Eventually, if he's there, the brothers can go down there and say, "Hey, look, yada yada yada." On with the Bloodline, you want to join us? Yada yada yada. Come and recruit him. Will it happen? I don't know, but I'm here for it. You're here for it. These people we talk to, they're here for it too.
Hell yeah, man. I mean, and the addition of, I got to say, if we get, because he signed to a Legends contract, if we get Armando Alejandro Estrada as the wise man, quote unquote, to the new bloodline, and you can add Zila Fatu up in the mix, I'm here for it. I think I'm going to say
crazy.
You know what it is too, and I hate to say it like this, but I know a lot of people feel this. Out of the new bloodline that we have, Tongaloa. And I like Tongaloa, I really do, but he's just been the shits. Like he's like the weakest one out of them, and I hate to say that. I'm sorry, but I'm just like, I look at Tongaloa. It's like you got Tama Tonga there, and how crazy he is, and how Jacob Fatu is, and how Solo is, and then I see Tongaloa, and I'm like, oh, here you are. He's the one kind of like the weak link, the odd man out for me, looking at this new bloodline. If you can,
what if that is purposely done?
You think?
What if that is purposely done? What if that is purposely done because instead of us taking the mindset that it's Jacob that's going to be the turn,
Tongaloa.
What if it's Tongaloa?
Ooh, okay. All right.
What if it's that half of the Gorillas of Destiny? And we're just playing off like, okay, he's just kind of a little disoriented, kind of crazy, you know. And what if that's that turn? That would be crazy. That would be a crazy thought.
That would be sweet. I think that's also, and I bring up what's great again about today's current product with WWE. You just don't know. Like for me, like, and I'll say this right now, and I mean, we'll do predictions next week for Bad Blood when the pay-per-view is, but like Liv and Rhea, like they've been talking about Raquel Gonzalez coming back, Raquel Rodriguez, like having her turning on, you know, Rhea, and Rhea's the one who injured her before she was out, you know, before she left. Like, I love that. That would be cool to introduce that. You have Drew and CM Punk, like they talked about Braun Breaker, and I know we're going to get to Jey Uso soon as well. But yeah, Braun Breaker who lost the Intercontinental Championship, and Punk said, I'll be seeing you soon. Like that interaction with Punk and Braun Breaker would be cool. Like, you just don't know. They've set up many things, the little inklings, the little subtleties, intricacies, and nuances, as I say. Like, I'm so enthralled, like we touched upon, on what they are doing. So give me more, to quote the great Britney Spears. And I'm going to tell you what we're going to give you more of here, folks, is more of the SmackDown talk because, well, I'm going to put it to you like this because stuff like this came out. We'll start with this one first because I think this was really cool. Jeremy Borash, shout out to JB, produced the Roman Reigns Cody Rhodes face-off that aired on last night's SmackDown. WWE's Director of Character Development, Rob Fee, was also on the scene for the segment. He and Borash have been collaborating on projects and segments like this of late. And also what came out besides this great shot is that Paul Heyman personally directed the Roman Reigns Cody Rhodes segment on WWE SmackDown. This whole thing was fantastic.
Cinematic. As Bully Ray said, cinema equals money.
Yep.
Look, we saw where it was at. Georgia Tech University. Guess who went to Georgia Tech?
Roman Reigns.
One Roman Reigns. Run. Joseph Anawai went to Georgia Tech. Now here's the thing. He said, this is my world. No, you're in my world, Cody said. This interaction was just so much. It's bringing out so much. All Cody really wanted to know is if you're going to have my back. But now imagine had this happened in front of a crowd. I'm going to take something that Tommy Dreamer, Bully Ray, Mark Henry, not Tommy Dreamer. It was Mark Henry, Bully Ray, and Dave LaGreca. They kind of pointed this out. Imagine this had happened in the middle of a ring. This interaction. There would be ooh, oh, a lot of that. Ooh, ooh, with a lot of the things that they said. Out here, you didn't need to hear that. All you saw was their faces, the energy that they had between them, their mannerisms. Two guys in the middle of a field interacting. You could feel the tension between them. They know their history. 2 rounds right here, 1 each. Eventually we'll get that 3rd round. But right here was just all cinema. And Roman coming in with 7
cars,
with seven SUVs, and Cody coming in a freaking in a Mustang. Was it a Mustang?
I think it was a Mustang. Yeah.
Yeah. But he came in hauling ass, you know, came in, boom, one little white car, you know, and just this brought everybody to their feet. And even though you're watching it, it was intense. That's what drew everybody in. And that's what's drawing people in. It's called storyline, Tony, story.
We're gonna get to Tony in a minute. So, intimate setting. Cody's just like, hey, you don't think I have history here? Like, my father's wrestled here. Like, this is Rhodes territory here. Atlanta, Georgia. Like, I went to school here. This is my home too. You know what I'm saying? You're in my city. You're in my state. I loved what I saw from these two. What I also liked as well, besides the intimate setting and where it builds to their tag match, the other side of the coin here is here's Kevin Owens at the end of SmackDown. And he's been pissed the entire night. He's like, you'll find out what I have to say. And then he looks like he's going to hit Cody with the chair. But, you know, he doesn't. And then they hug. And Cody's like, we good? Are we cool? We're all right? And then you still see that look on Kevin Owens' face. Like, he's so pissed. Because it's like, after everything that this man's done, you're going to friggin' side with Roman Reigns. You're going to hug him. And you're going to be boys. And have his word. And I love that. Because it also sets up the Kevin Owens feud with Cody as a heel. And let's put this out into the forefront. Kevin Owens' contract is going to be expiring soon, and AEW has a vast interest in him. And I'm going to blow everybody's bubble here, and I hate to do this to each and every one of y'all, but I'm going to. There is no goddamn way that Kevin Owens is not re-signing to the WWE. There's no goddamn way he's not re-signing.
As everybody's been saying, and we can go back to Cody and Randy Orton on the bus on his podcast.
Right.
This is not Vince McMahon's era. This is the Paul Levesque era.
Yep.
You need time off, Paul's going to give it to you. You need time to rest and heal, Paul is going to give it to you.
We got a wedding, give me notice in advance. You can go do it.
You can go do it. We can go around in this big ass circle and say, oh, well, you know, this, I couldn't do this, or, you know, somebody couldn't do that. No, that was Vince McMahon's era. This is Paul Levesque. You give him some time. Your baby's gonna be born. Oh, dude, you're off for a whole 2 weeks. Don't come back. Don't call. We ain't gonna call you. You have injury. Guess what? We're gonna give you the time off. You know what? Take all the time you need. Heal, recover. You have a birthday party. You have a funeral. You have any occasion that they need to take off, guess what? They're going to give it to them. Why? Because this isn't Vince McMahon's era. This is the Paul Levesque era. Dude, this is completely different than anything Vince would have ever thought of.
And before we get to Vince, I think we need to go to Tony because, so I will start it first with this just because some people make stupid things, but I'm going to just address this because it came up. That girl, Kate from Fightful. I don't know shit about HBK or Bret Hart. When I started watching wrestling, I was intellectually curious and YouTube existed. Danielson versus McGuinness has been building for 20 years, and Nigel has been trying to tell y'all on commentary since he got the job. You can just Google it if you aren't up to speed. No. How about, I hate this. I hate the fact that everyone's like, oh, Google it. No. Tell me the story. Build it up. I'm not going to Google it. You know what I'm saying? This is not like a mid-season show when all of a sudden they replace somebody and then Google who they are. You know what I'm saying? It's like, that's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. It's like when you see in a sitcom when Judy Ann Elder replaced Jo Marie Peyton Noble as Harriet in the season 9 episodes. Like for the last like 3 or 4 episodes, she was the new Harriet because Jo Marie Peyton wanted to leave. And it wasn't the same. So, I mean, they didn't even like say anything like when that happened, if you remember, like just like, oh, here's the new Harriet. But at least when you had the Fresh Prince, they made a joke and nod of when Daphne Maxwell Reed replaced Janet Hubert. Like they made a little nod to it. But like, yeah, I equate it to like that. So what were your thoughts on what Kate had to say? Because that was just buck wildness.
Okay.
Hit me.
I'm not going to be disrespectful to Kate because I completely understand where she's coming from. Now I'm going to take the high road here. I'm sorry. I'm going to take the high road here.
All right.
Because I love Kate.
Okay.
It's interesting how we go back to the same thing I we've constantly said about Tony Khan,
mm-hmm.
that he needs to be able to tell people the whole story rather than just what we will get into next.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of telling people this and this happened, so you're going to need to be able to watch this. Yes, Kate may be young enough to, too young to know about HBK and everything else. Yes, Nigel has complained and bitched and whined about Daniel Bryan and them having their feud and blah blah blah, and that if you want to say that's long-term storytelling, then we could say it's long-term storytelling. But Daniel Bryan never said anything. He never had an interaction with him. It would be different if he would have heard him on commentary in all the matches that Nigel has been on, that Daniel has wrestled when Nigel was on commentary, because you could hear him. Obviously, you can hear him.
Mm-hmm.
Had Daniel actually turned to him and said something to him, about, again, having an interaction with him over every time that Daniel was in the ring, it would be different. But we didn't get that. We haven't gotten that. So in that aspect, no, Kate, we can't say that there's been something for 20 years, because it has to be acknowledged by two people, not just one. Nigel can have the gripe. You could bitch and complain about your team not getting to the Super Bowl or not winning a Super Bowl that particular year and continue to keep talking about it 20 years down the line. Or you can have an interaction with the person. Now, it would have been different had he started this when he came to AEW. Had he started a conversation like, I'm not cleared to wrestle, blah, blah, blah. Him and Daniel could have had jabberjaw,
verbal exchange.
Yeah, thank you. They could have had a really, really long-term verbal exchange. Punk and Drew weren't in the ring for nearly 8 months. And yet they verbally exchanged with each other. They threw heat at each other for 8 months until they got in the ring together. How is Nigel and Bryan so different? It's not, because they could have done it and they could have had it, but we go back to what Tony's thought is. You could take it.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna.
Sorry, Kate, but I love you.
Here's the thing, and I'm not going to bury her either. I'm just bringing up that quote. I look at it like this. So I've told you this, and many people know. I didn't start watching wrestling until 2002. I knew of wrestling, but I did not watch it like religiously like I've had. I've been watching wrestling for 20 plus years now. So
you mean to tell me I had 20 plus years on you?
That you did. So
look, I'm old.
So I'll equate Shawn Michaels. Like my first introduction to Shawn in 2002, and I was there, and it's one of my favorite matches with Shawn Michaels and Triple H unsanctioned at SummerSlam 02, right? So they built it up like the video package, like they were friends. In 1997, they formed DX, and then Shawn gets hurt, and then they come back, and then Shawn and Triple H look like they're going to form DX on Raw, and then Triple H pedigree Shawn, and then that gave us one of the best doggone builds and stories of that year at that SummerSlam. So I look at it like this. Because,
unsanctioned match.
Yeah, non-sanctioned, man. Non-sanctioned. Good stuff.
That was a great match.
That was fantastic. That's actually a match that I think we all should have in our not just like a watch party with all of us, but that's definitely a match to talk about in the future for all of us. I'm going to put that down because if anybody's never seen it, Shawn Michaels in the fucking blue jeans and the tables and the pop he gets when he first kips up after 4 years, it's absolutely fantastic. Oh my God, you're putting it into my head now. So this ties into what I'm saying. So, oh my God, I laughed and I had to share this with you. So, well, people are like, "Oh, how could Tony do this? He owns the Ring of Honor footage," and people have been like, "Nigel's never in the WWE." I'm like, he was a commentator. No, he didn't wrestle, but he was a commentator, and that's what pissed me off about these AEW doggone fans, because this still image right here that you're seeing is why, and now obviously people can watch it now because I guess on the YouTube, Tony put up, here's the history of Nigel McGuinness, as you can see in this photo, the best of Nigel McGuinness on AEW. That's how we know about Nigel. So we did that. But this was the reason why I got the copyright strike, because he took from the WWE Network documentary, and WWE's like, hey, mofos, yes, I know you own Ring of Honor, but we use that in our documentary, and it says WWE Network right there. So that is why WWE put out a little copyright strizike on that video. What were your thoughts when you saw that?
You know, for the exact same reason that Tony says that, oh, well, you guys can come to us for footage.
Yeah.
If you guys need footage for them, you guys can come to us and ask us.
Yeah.
But somehow they didn't come to WWE. And then, mind you, it may have been only a little clip. It wasn't them trying to be spiteful. It was just the fact that, you know what, you used our stuff without permission. And it has their logo.
Right
it's
there.
Right there.
WWE Network. Duh. Like, I don't know why people were so like, oh my God, they're so petty. They're so petty. No, it's like, they're like, hey, like you can put out footage of Nigel McGuinness. That's fine. But could you like put out footage without our logo on it that we used in a documentary that we did on him? Like, it's just, it's simple, but people are just so dumb. So speaking of the dumbness, we're going to go to next. So this is from Brian Alvarez. He was doing his little thing on Figure 4 online. So Tony Khan started telling people there's no such thing as long-term booking anymore. It's week to week. And Julian Weeks had posted, wow, that explains a lot. So here is the clip. Then I'm going to comment really quickly, and then we'll get to the busted open reaction. So here's Brian Alvarez talking about Tony Khan.
Tony Khan started telling people there's no such thing as long-term booking anymore. It's week to week. And when I heard that, I was like, what? He didn't really say that. But if you watch the shows, that's what happened. I think those two were big. And I think obviously the biggest issue was it.
Okay. So here's my comment on it, and then we'll get to the Vince stuff as well in a little bit. But I have to put this into the forefront here, ladies and gentlemen. So it makes sense because everyone's like, well, what about Hangman Swerve and the dirt? And I'm like, Hangman Page and Adam and Swerve Strickland, right? When that happened last year, the build was, oh, hey, Hangman, you're not the same who you used to be. And then they had a little verbal exchange. And then Tony went right to, because he has to rush. Oh, my God, we're going to go into the house, and I'm going to kidnap, and I'm going to go at his daughter, and we're going to do this. He did this everything so fast. Like, I'll give another example with Hangman Page. When he wrestled Lance Archer for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship, we had 2 or 3 weeks before we got to Texas. So it's like, we're going to fight. By the way, Texas Death Match, World Heavyweight Championship in Texas. It doesn't need to have a Texas Death Match in there because it doesn't really need to. You could just say, hey, Lance Archer, Texas boy, homegrown, goes for the World Heavyweight Championship. And everybody can be like, oh, what about Undertaker and Jeff Hardy? Another one of my favorites from 02. Because it was Jeff Hardy, you know, they playing the guitar, drop kicking the Undertaker and the Tommy Dreamer's vomit. And yes, it was a few weeks, but it built like, you know, Undertaker telling Jeff Hardy, you know, you're extreme, you live for the moment, but are you ready to die in that same moment? He takes out Matt, and then the Hardys take out the Undertaker, and then Raven handcuffs Jeff Hardy, and then Matt Hardy is held by the Undertaker as they beat up Matt Hardy and Jeff Hardy and that ring, and then they have the match, and then Jeff loses. Then he's like, hey, man, I'm going to beat you in my match. We're not done. Ladder match. Have the iconic ladder match. Jeff almost wins, but then the Undertaker chokeslams him off, retains the title, last ride, and then Jeff gets on the mic, and you know what he says, the whole thing, you haven't broken me, I'm still standing. Then the Undertaker just, you know, pats him on the head and says, you're a tough son of a bitch. Why that made sense is because it built to Jeff Hardy becoming this mega solo star, and also the fact that he didn't quit, and it makes him look stronger while the Undertaker is on his way at the time to the Vengeance pay-per-view. So there's many different ways of telling that story. The story of just rushing to a Texas death match or rushing to, we're going to go to the house and we're going to kidnap and touch the baby is different than what we've seen. So his booking is very rush. And it makes sense why he looks things from week to week and not long-term. Go ahead. My apologies.
No. You went on. You hit the nail on the head, though, with everything that you said. Now, we specifically continue to talk about the bloodline from 2020, 21, 22, 23, and now in 24.
4 years.
In 4 years, in the matter of 4 years, we looked at the progression of the bloodline. We looked at the beginning of when Roman got the title, to him forming the bloodline, to him bringing in the members, to him holding the title for, God number amount of days, and then losing it, having 2 epic world title matches against Cody Rhodes, who eventually finishing his story and became champion, to now the continuance of where the bloodline is as it's separated into 2, basically the NWO 2.0, to where now it's split, except we don't have a Wolf Pack and we don't have a OG NWO. What we have is that we have Solo Sikoa, his version of the bloodline, and we have Roman Reigns as an individual who is still considering himself the OG tribal chief. Again, back to a story that started in 2020 and has progressed all the way to here. That's long-term storytelling, long-term booking, because you need that in order to draw people in. Yes, there will be hiccups. There will be a roller coaster to where we'll all go through it, but it ends up telling a story in the end. Every story has an end. Every story has a beginning, or it can have kind of that low, but it comes back to it. Unfortunately, Tony Khan has no idea how the fuck to do that.
All right, I got to bring this up. Orange Cassidy beats Chris Jericho. Yes, we're talking about our favorite professional wrestler, Chris Jericho. So, and then it continues, because next week on Collision, we're going to get the conglomeration against friggin' the Learning Tree in a 6-man tag. Why are we still doing this? Why? Because I know why they're going to do it, because there's going to be some, dysfunction and Big Bill, and between Big Bill and Jericho, because Tony wants Big Bill versus Chris Jericho, which nobody ever wanted to see, but we're going to get it.
Nobody ever said they wanted that.
Nobody said that. Then Dustin Rhodes and Sammy Guevara beat the Kingdom in the Bunkhouse Brawl on Collision. They're all bloody, and then Sammy Guevara goes, "Oh, hey, by the way, Okada, I wanna match with you in Eliminator next week on Grand Slam, and if I win, I get the title match on the Grand Slam." So you mean to tell me that of everybody who's gonna beat Okada for the first time, you're gonna have fucking Sammy Guevara just because he opened up the first ever Dynamite against Cody Rhodes, baby? So we're gonna give him a fucking Continental Championship match with Kazuchika Okada out of mothballs? Really? That's what we're doing. We're doing Sammy Guevara and Kazuchika Okada out of flipping nowhere. And also just the fact that, and friggin' Yuka Sakazaki and Mariah May out of nowhere, which, all right, fine. Like, Hook, I like Hook. I do. I really do. But here's what he got me with this. He's like, well, if people knew that we at the Elks Lodge in Queens, where the Arthur Ashe Stadium is about 5 minutes from there, that's where the FTW Championship originated. Unless you're a diehard wrestling fan and you paid attention to ECW in 1998, you would not know that. You would not know that. And I like Hook. I really do, brother, fellow New Yorker. But unless you're an ECW fan and you follow Taz not just from WWF and to where he is now, and you weren't watching ECW in 98, you would not know that. You could also mention that, or again, video package, specify, explain the importance of the FTW Championship, and just say, oh, by the way, this was this thing in ECW.
Call WWE and get the footage of where the FTW
Championship
title started.
Right. Not just say, oh, brother, 5 minutes from here at the Elks Lodge is where this title originated, for those who didn't know. Thank you.
Yeah. Huh.
Woo.
I lost my virginity right there down the street, right there around the corner. But that's where I lost my virginity at. Because that was so important as to where the hell I lost my virginity at, right?
Yes.
Because that's where the FTW title started at. It started over there around the corner at a bar.
Oh, fuck. We went down to the mention a popular spot on Long Island. We went to the Oasis. Yeah. We went to the bar. We went to the strip club. Then I
still remember her name. That's the word. That's the best part.
This is how he thinks. You think we're making this shit up. This is how they think. This is how they think.
Exactly.
Oh, fuck. Okay, so we go from that. We'll get to Vincent and then we'll get to the stuff on Instagram. But I gotta play it because Paul sent me this. This is from Busted Open talking about storylines. This ties into what we just mentioned with fucking, oh my God, I still can't get over the fact that you mentioned the virginity. Hold on a minute. So we're gonna go to Busted Open Radio, and here's the crew talking about storylines and dumbass Dave, and here we go.
Can have a 5-star match. Listen, not every wrestler can have a 5-star match, but a 5-star match isn't going to last past that one match. Once you've had that 5-star match, then the match is there. It works on its own. It's there. But how is that going to take you to the next week or the next show or the next time you're in the ring together? It's really about what you're able to do on the microphone. That's probably more important than anything else. It's because it's that interaction that's really going to get people to watch your shows, get people to buy tickets to the arena. Because, and I was having this discussion with my brother. My brother visited me yesterday, and my brother's, as you guys know, is not a big wrestling fan. So I was talking about like how pro wrestling is so different than other sports. When it comes to the Super Bowl, what is the Super Bowl? The Super Bowl should be the two best teams facing each other for the championship. That's it. It's the play on the field is the only thing that's going to dictate who are going to be the last two teams that face each other for the Super Bowl championship. But in pro wrestling, it's so much more. It's more about the chase to get to that match. It's more about the story that you could tell that takes you to that WrestleMania main event. Because if it's just about the two best wrestlers facing each other, what's the story behind there? That story's been told. It's really about the personal connection between those two people. Now, the foundation could be about who are the two best wrestlers. The foundation could be about that championship title. But it's really the story that you could tell. Cody and Roman at last year's WrestleMania, I could definitively say at that time were the two best wrestlers in the WWE, and they were facing each other for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. But the story was so much more than those two things. It was Cody trying to capture a moment that his Hall of Fame legendary father was never able to do. And then Roman was talking and telling the story of the head of the table and the bloodline, and that his family dictated him being in the position. So, yeah, the foundation was the championship title and the two best wrestlers, but the story that they were able to tell. And then you throw in The Rock and the fans and everything else. But in pro wrestling, you could tell so much more of a story than just the two best wrestlers and a championship title.
Mark, would you rather have a 5-star match or a 3-star match that'll be remembered forever?
I'd rather have a 3-star match that'll be registered and people will see it forever.
Dave, what was to your recollection, this could be any company, AEW or WWE. I think it's going to be AEW, but what was the last match that was rated 5 stars?
I'm sure if you're going to go by Meltzer's 5-star rating, half the matches that we saw at All Out are all in.
Okay, like maybe Ospreay versus whoever, like maybe MJF, maybe that got 5 stars. I don't know. I can't remember what was the last 5-star match. My point is this: whatever that last 5-star match is, compare it to TLC 2. Did TLC 2 get 5 stars?
No. I'm good. Okay, there you go.
No, it did not. Will TLC 2 be remembered forever?
Yes.
That's the point.
And
number 1, make the most money. 2, be remembered forever.
All right. So in that circumstance, Hogan and Andre, not a 5-star match, but it drew 93,000 fans to see it. Like Hogan and Rock at WrestleMania.
Shawn and Taker. Shawn and Taker. That wasn't given 5 stars, was it?
In my book, it was a 5-star match. Whether Meltzer gave it a 5-star match, that all right. Paul just said, according to Dave Meltzer, Osprey Pac from All Out was 5.5 stars.
With all due respect to Will Ospreay and Pac, the majority of the wrestling universe will not be talking about their match from All Out in 20 years. Would you agree or disagree?
Listen, if I didn't just mention it, would either one of you remember Osprey and Pac?
No.
I remember the match, but it didn't stand out as a. You know what match stands out to me is Osprey and Takeshita. Like the match that Hangman Page and Swerve had. The match that Page had with Bryan Danielson, that was an hour long. Like those matches didn't get 5 stars.
I mean, I don't know if they didn't, but if they did or didn't. But just to answer the question,
I don't remember them getting 5 stars. But
just
they
to
was
answer the question,
fucking good to me.
Shawn and Taker from WrestleMania 25, according to Dave Meltzer, not a 5-star match. And to me, that's the greatest match in WrestleMania history. That will be remembered forever. So, you know, I think like the point is being made is that, listen, I really honestly think Paul and I, our producer, are having this discussion. I actually think a lot of the AEW matches that we're seeing right now, you may go back and look at them 15, 20 years and be like, holy shit, what a great match. But like the stories are more important to me. And those moments are more important to me than a 5-star match because it's more about the buildup. Now, listen, was Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes a 5-star match? Probably not. But to me, I will remember that match forever. Why? Because the moments we got in the match and the story that was told going into the match. That's what's going to be remembered forever. And part of that is what you're able to do on the microphone.
Amen.
So I was wearing my Undertaker shirt and on Saturday.
Right.
We went to we ended up staying at a hotel. We had a staycation, out here. And I walked up to the front desk and I was wearing my, again, Undertaker shirt.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy goes, "Wow, I love your shirt." And I said, "Oh, thank you." First thing he said to me was, "I have replayed for my friends that 2.5 minutes from The Rock, or from that last 2.5 minutes of that match."
Yeah.
For all my friends. He said, because that's a clip that will always remain with me. And I was just like, my wife looks at me and she goes, "You in that damn shirt." And I said, "But it gets people talking."
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing is that we will remember these matches, the matches that are booked long-term for a long time. Bully mentioned TLC 2. Tell me you remember that.
I do.
And we as fans those are ingrained in our head. Those are embedded in our memories because those moments stood out to us. Brett versus Stone Cold, blood bleeding down his head, passed unconscious. We all remember that.
Brett versus Owen from WrestleMania 10. Brett versus Shawn in the Iron Man match. Like, I'll give you another TLC reference. Like I mentioned, starting in 2002, like that TLC 3 that they did on Raw Roulette with Jeff and Van Dam and Jericho and Christian and Dudley's, like that sticks out in my memory because that match was so flipping good. Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit against Edge and Rey Mysterio at No Mercy 02 for the SmackDown WWE Tag Team Championships. Like I can tell you the whole Survivor Series 02 card with Brock and Big Show, the first Elimination Chamber that Shawn won. Hell, I'll even mention, like I mentioned earlier, Taker and Jeff Hardy, like we talked about The Undertaker. That match will live because that was a great ladder match on Raw. Taker and Shawn. And practically any WrestleMania match of The Undertaker, good and bad, it had a lasting impression of it. Same with Brett. You could even we still talk about the Montreal Screwjob, even though the controversy around it, but we still talk about that moment at the Montreal Screwjob.
We talk about No Way Out, Eddie and freaking Brock.
Eddie and Brock.
We still talk about that. Why? Because of the promo that Eddie did.
Yep.
We still talk about Brock coming out with a mariachi band
and the sombrero
and a sombrero and dancing all the way down the aisle in the ring, out there dancing around like a fool. We remember those things because, again, long-term storytelling. Stories are based on that. This is what wrestling is about. It still goes on to this day. Look, we talked about Drew and Pepsi Phil, you know, and we talked about him. I'm sorry, I am not. Thank you, Danhausen, for that one, because I am never going to stop saying that. We got Drew, we got DM Hunk, and freaking and Pepsi Phil. Look, we long term. Look, and this happened all the way at the Royal Rumble.
Mm-hmm.
We got to see him injure him. Look, I prayed for this. We ended up having this whole thing. Drew winning the world title at WrestleMania, losing the world title at WrestleMania because he went over to CM Punk again, still continuing the story along the way, and we all get it.
All right,
why can you not do that, Tony? Why can you stop thinking that in that mentality that you have to think week to week? This is not New Japan. This is America, where people are expecting you to have a story if you have a company. That's why somebody, Billy Corgan, figured it out, that you can't go week to week. This man has rebranded the NWA into, we got Tom Latner and freaking EC3 right now for the NWA world title.
Yep.
You see the story that they're telling in this. This has been long-term because this has been at least a year and a half in the making because of all the matches that they had where it didn't have the title.
Right. And that's the thing, like building how Bram is now in NWA, which for those who have not seen it, he's amazing. And EC3 being the cocky heel that he is, he's always been so underrated. I'll give you an example. Like you mentioned, we talk about long-term storyline. Like you mentioned Brock Lesnar and the sombrero. I mean, look at Brock Lesnar's run. Like I was there when he beat The Rock at SummerSlam. Like that whole Brock Lesnar's first one, I could tell you everything because it was so memorable, from beating The Rock, the Undertaker feud in the Hell in a Cell, losing to the Big Show, the Kurt Angle feud from WrestleMania 19 to where he turned heel in the SummerSlam match, and then that infamous Iron Man match on SmackDown where Brock won the title and bashed Kurt Angle in the head with the steel chair. I could tell you all of that.
The backflip, the flip in the at WrestleMania where he nearly broke his damn neck.
Where he broke
doing the flip
on the shooting star press. Yes. Like, I can tell you all this stuff, folks, because it's memorable.
I could tell you the Undertaker with Mankind. We could talk about the Broiler Room. We could talk the Buried Alive match. We could talk about the Hell in a Cell at fucking King of the Ring.
We could talk about
and that's another one that we could talk about over and over again. That had damn Hell in a Cell.
Yep.
Mick Foley almost died, and yet he came back down the damn aisle afterwards. And we can continue to talk about story after story after story. We could talk about storylines for days.
Mick Foley and Randy Orton going into Backlash 04.
Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero.
Right. Like the whole
custody of freaking Dom.
The WrestleMania
match. Back to look at, you could sit here and tell me we could talk about Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins, long-term storytelling. Yep. Hit him on the back with a steel chair. And that Roman Reigns did it back to him at WrestleMania. Guess what? That's my payback.
Yep. 10 years later.
The 10 years later, again, there's a story there. You just have to find it. You have to be able to develop it. If you're not willing to make the time to develop these stories, then you shouldn't be in fucking wrestling. You should not be booking wrestling.
I agree with the take on Ospreay and Pac, but I will also up that. I'll give you another example. Mercedes Moné. And I'll look at it like this. I can tell you right now. Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna put the Ryan Reynolds gif in again. So her matches in AEW right now, nobody's gonna remember in 20 years. But here's what's great about Mercedes Moné. We still talk about it 9 years later. The match with Bayley at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn, the 30-minute Iron Woman match from the following takeover after that. We can tell you about that. We can tell you about her bouts that she's had with Charlotte, the first ever woman Hell in a Cell match. We could talk about her and Bianca main eventing WrestleMania, the first ever African-American women to main event WrestleMania. We could talk about those moments and her crying at the end of that, being so overcome and overjoyed. We can tell you about those Sasha Banks memories. What we're seeing now from her in AEW, nobody's going to remember this in like fucking 20 years. You're not. You're not.
And that's the thing, though, is like we've said this, I don't know how many times already. Mm-hmm. what she had in WWE, she will not get in AEW. And this is not a knock on the roster.
No.
Because we all know that that roster is stacked with a bunch of amazing and talented women. Toni Storm. We could talk about Saraya. We could talk about Britt Baker. We can go on and on with the list of women that are there that are so super over fucking talented. If you're not telling a story and you're not developing a story with these people, the matches are just matches and people are not going to care. Same thing Bully Ray said.
I'll give you
people are not going to care about her being there because she's just having matches. They're not going to care.
Yeah, my apologies for the cutoff here, but I got to mention one more example here because I like how you put that no one would care and how everything that goes into the importance of storyline and matches and characters. Folks, we just had 9 years of when Asuka signed with the WWE and NXT. Like, I could tell you the Asuka career story and trajectory of NXT. When she goes in, she absolutely mollywops Dana Brooke. She mollywops Emma. She goes against Bayley at that infamous NXT takeover in Texas where Shinsuke Nakamura debuted and beat Sami Zayn. Like, that match was fantastic. The American Alpha against the Revival, that match with Bayley. I can tell you all of that from Dallas and her run against Ember Moon and just being the undefeated NXT Women's Champion. I can tell you that run, and that's almost 9 years now. So it's the importance of the moments, folks, and the memories instead of just doing move, and making Dave Meltzer hard. But that's all Tony wants to do is book to Dave Meltzer and make Dave Meltzer hard. I don't want to make Dave Meltzer hard.
I don't even want to know that Dave Meltzer is hard.
Exactly.
I don't want to know that he actually subscribed to Blue Chew and used the promo code Denise. And I'm shouting out Denise because you know what, Denise, I fucking love you. And shout out to Blue Chew. And if we end up becoming sponsors for Blue Chew and use Denise as our promo code, you know what? Hey, Denise, I'm telling you right now, I want in. And not like that, but I want in.
Jesus. Okay. I want in, but not like that. Holy shit. Okay. All right. We're going to move on from that.
FYI, I'm using that as a clip because I have to. And she's going to fucking die at laughing at it.
Oh, shit. Okay. So moving on to the next.
Shout out to Denise Salcedo.
Shout out, much love to Denise. Absolutely. So before we get into Vinnie Mac and Yeet talk, one other thing before we get into the final topic. Ethan Page was on Chris Van Vliet's podcast, and they asked him why he left AEW, and he talked about the grind of 17 to 18 years, and Shawn Michaels just showing and seeing his progression and just everything that's come to NXT and the environment. But this was something that was very telling to me. He said, it was time. I wasn't getting what I magically got in NXT, which is the opportunity to show what I bring to the table. This here to me is preparation meets opportunity, and the amount of preparation I got, it is a lot, 17, 18 years of preparation. Perfectly said. No, absolutely, because what he was doing in AEW, he was floundering. Like, he may have had some stuff with the Hardys and the American Top Team stuff with Dan Lambert, but with what we're seeing now, he has taken the ball and run with it. Like, from him as the NXT champion going against Trick, attacking him right away, him being all ego going against Joe Hendry and Javon Evans and all these amazing talents and, what's-his-face, Ora Mensa. Like, he has played his role to the fullest, and you and I have seen Ethan from his days in TNA with Josh Alexander as a part of the North, and to where he's really just gone from that particular time period to now. He's one that definitely deserves his flowers and really does get the kudos that he deserves because he's been killing it.
It's great to see that he didn't quite shit on Tony and AEW, but he's also saying, guess what? I didn't get these opportunities over there that I'm getting here. He kind of casually said, my opportunities are greater here than they were there.
Mm-hmm.
Without actually saying, guess what? I'm going to shit on you. But it's great that he sees what's going on. It's great that he's developed into this great individual in NXT, and this opportunity for him it's amazing to see what he's doing. Yes, he's a heel. Yes, he's doing what he's doing, but he's on TV every week. He's being produced in a great way as a heel to a lot of really, really talented wrestlers, especially guys who are still in the development stage of like Javon Evans, and you know, and he's working it, and it's great to see him, you know, shot at the moon, man. I mean, this guy's doing great things in NXT, and I hope he stays there for a while. I don't want to see him on the main roster. I want to see him flourish there.
I think to add on to your point with what we got the CW going, you need a lot of those mainstays to stay there, like Ethan Pages and all the veterans like Sean Spears to work with the talent. I think it's going to be great to see what the CW era brings for NXT and WWE, and I think Ethan Page being one of the head integral parts of it is the right path and the right move going forward. And speaking of going forward, we now move on to Vinnie Mac. Before we get to Darby and Yeet, we got to go to Vinnie Mac because as we're recording this tomorrow is when the Vinnie Mac documentary airs on Netflix. And this is what we found out today, as well as late last night. Vince McMahon, according to Puck News, tried to buy the Mr. McMahon docuseries project back from Netflix after seeing early footage. McMahon was nervous about the doc and also had Endeavor CEO Ari Emanuel chime, and on his behalf also voicing concern about the doc's treatment of Vince's alter ego, Mr. McMahon. So he tried to buy it back from Netflix after seeing the early footage, and Netflix said, nope. Your thoughts?
Look, Vince Diddy.
No Diddy.
Yeah, no Diddy. You participated in this with the mindset that you were nothing like the alter ego that you created as Mr. McMahon. But what the reality is, and what people have already seen, is that you really are that alter ego. I'm sorry, you want to sit here and tell people blatantly to their face, Donald Trump Jr., to come over here and start telling people, guess what? I'm not this person. I'm not this type of person. But reality is that's you. Yes, you are. And all the lawsuits and everything that's come out since you've, retired the first time, retired the second time, and left TV and decided that you wanted to be backstage and not up in the front. I mean, everybody pretty much already knows exactly how you are. All those NDAs ain't working no more. So apparently, I'm going to have to say that, guess what, Diddy? You out there. And you can't have it back. You can't. Hey, this ain't Burger King, and you cannot have it your way.
Shimo, so I have to put this out there before I read his statement. Mick Foley and Rikishi have disappointed me because for those that saw what they were talking about at the convention, Mick Foley literally said, you know what, I like to think the good outweighs the bad. And I've had great times with him, and he wanted to write a book pretty much talking about, the pearls of wisdom and just everything that goes into being WWE and the good things that goes with being WWE. And Vince was like, no. And everything that went into that. He talked about writing that one for some of the children's books of what Vince's does and what the WWE has done good. But also I look at it from a stance too, like this as well. It's like Mick is like, I'll wait to see what goes on in the documentary. I'm like, Mick, there's a lot of evidence out there, and you're worried about, trying to find Vince's address and write a thank you to him for what he did for you. Mick, hi. You work with RAIN, which was about rape and incest and helping people that go through domestic violence and doing hotlines. And you mean to flip and tell me that you're going to say this about Vince McMahon because of your blind loyalty? I mean, look at what Bret Hart said. And even before I get to Rikishi, look at Bret Hart said. He's like, I thank Vince for what he's done for my career, but fuck him. The bluntest thing I've ever heard Bret Hart ever said, but fuck him. Mick, not so much.
I was gonna actually touch on this, but you could read this and then I'll say what I'm gonna say.
Okay, so we'll get into Mick and Rikishi, but let me read this. This was from Vince McMahon's Twitter. I don't regret participating in this Netflix documentary. The producers had an opportunity to tell an objective story about my life and the incredible business I built, which were equally filled with excitement, drama, fun, and a fair amount of controversy and life lessons. Unfortunately, based on an early partial cut I've seen, this doc falls short and takes a predictable path of conflating the Mr. McMahon character with my true self, Vince. The title and promos alone make that evident. A lot has been misrepresented or left out entirely in an effort to leave viewers intentionally confused. The producers use typical editing tricks with out-of-context footage and dated sound bites, etc., to distort the viewer's perception and support a deceptive narrative. In an attempt to further their misleading account, the producers use a lawsuit based on an affair I ended as evidence that I am, in fact, Mr. McMahon. I hope the viewer will keep an open mind and remember that there are two sides to every story. All right.
Oh, you were waiting for me? Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah. I looked at that. I'm like, this is a man who was nervous and just so like, shook up of like what's going to come out because he knows he's screwed.
I get that Vince had a relationship with a lot of different wrestlers. This includes Mark, my favorite, my namesake. I get it. I get that he had a relationship with Glenn Jacobs. I get he had a relationship with Mark Calloway. I get it. He had one with John Cena. I get it. He had one with Dwayne Johnson, Mick Foley, Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, Terry Bollea. We can go the list of the real names. We can go with the list and on and on and on of all the guys who have had really, really strong relationship, strong bonds with him. I get it. Mark Undertaker credits Vince for bringing him over, giving him the character, and I get it, is his whole entire career. You want to praise the man for everything that he did. Okay, let's speak on that.
Okay.
The same way that people shit on Chris Benoit for what he did to his wife, for what he did to his kid, are the exact same people who praise Vince. And that's true and honest. Vince, yes, had created the company. Yes, we all know this, but we have to look at everything objectively, and everything that he's done that has been so negative, that has been out there in the universe and for everybody to know. The people who have come out, we could talk about Janelle. We could talk about what happened over in Iraq. We could talk about, the countless number of women who have come into his life and have NDAs, but have all either something has happened to them or they have their stories. And we could talk about the countless women who are already accusing him of rape. Okay.
Yeah, Rita Chatterton back in the 80s with the fellatio and the limo. Yep.
And we could talk about that to the extent, and yes, you guys who want to sit here and say that, oh yes, we owe our lives to him. You don't owe your life to somebody who is doing these things.
And would he do the same for them if the shoe was on the other
foot? Would he do, again, thank you. You were getting to my next point. Would he do that for you? I think in hindsight, like, you want to be able to praise this man for creating a company, for creating a lot of the characters that we all know and love and got to. We had so much admiration for Stone Cold. We could talk about The Rock. We could talk about The Undertaker. We could talk about Mick Foley. We could talk about Mankind. We could talk about Dude Love and all his characters. We could talk about the Hardys. We could talk about the Dudley Boys. We could talk about, the countless number of wrestlers that have come through WWF/WWE over his tenure. But what we can't take away is the fact that he did all these things to these other people and who are suing him continuously, even though he's wanted to settle out of court numerous times because he didn't want all the publicity and whatnot. We could talk about the steroid scandal. We could talk about all this other stuff, but the things that he did to people, the things that he did to the women that he had relationships with, is point blank. It's right there, right in front of your place. So please, please, please stop praising this man for everything that he's fucking done. That's no better than the people that shit on fucking Chris Benoit. Great ring career, but he was shitty for fucking shooting his wife and his kid.
I mean, from the double murder homicide and the double murder suicide, from what Vince has done, with what Mick Foley said, like I said, just him praising him and the good outweighs the bad. And then we get to Rikishi, who's like, I've known Vince, I've known the McMahons for 75 years with the WWF and the Wild Samoans, and they took care of my family. And then he said something like I mentioned, Mick outweighing good, outweighing the bad, and he doesn't want to say anything until he sees a documentary. Rikishi said the same thing, but here's what got me about Rikishi. I believe that everyone deserves a second chance. This mofo is 79 years old. He just turned 79. Stop it. He's stuck in his ways. He's not gonna see like what the hell that he did was wrong. Stop it. He doesn't.
Yeah, he's not gonna come out and start saying, "Oh, you know what? I know I did all this wrong." He's you know, I should have never did it. I should have just acknowledged it then. I should have stopped my pattern of that I was doing way back then. I should have known better. I'm sorry. Come out and publicly apologize to everybody. I'm sorry that I allowed this to happen. I'm sorry that I allowed a female wrestler to get raped over in freaking Iraq. I'm sorry that I swept it under the rug and I should have said nothing and I didn't say anything. I'm sorry to the countless women that I raped or I ended up having to pay out all these cash values to because I didn't want the publicity, to get out there. You can't sweep that under the rug. You can't. It's like it's there. It's out in public now. They don't have to worry about their NDAs anymore because guess what? He stopped paying.
Mm-hmm. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see the start of the Mr. McMahon documentary. It's all out on Netflix tomorrow, folks. 6 parts, 6 one-hour parts. We're going to see some of the stuff that was filmed before it, and then we're going to get into the nitty-gritty and the juicy stuff. So definitely check out Netflix. And I will say this on a off-wrestling comment. If you're not checking out Netflix, definitely want to check out the Menendez brothers, man. I actually just finished watching that whole series. Good. It's really good. Definitely check that out, folks. So Netflix has a lot of good stuff on it. And speaking of a lot of good stuff, we are going to go to our final topics, and here we go. We're going to talk about Darby Allin and the AEW, and then we're going to get to our boy Yeet. So let's start with this one first and foremost.
Big part of you and your character and who you are.
Yeah,
right?
that's a big thing because I like to say if people are going to compare like the two companies, whether it's like WWE or AEW or whatever, I like to put it as like kind of music references. For example, like you can say WWE is like the Taylor Swift and AEW is the Slayer, and we don't really, you know what I mean? Like Taylor Swift can sell more records, but that doesn't mean that Slayer doesn't have a huge following, and our brand of music is a little bit more intense, violent, but we don't have to change anything. You know what I mean? Like we don't have to try to sell the same records as a Taylor Swift. We're kind of in our own world. And that's what I like to compare the two things to. And, like you could watch All Out, for example, and it could be a little offensive to people, but man, I live to offend people. Music is.
All right. So Taylor Swift and Slayer. Okay. Yeah. What the hell Slayer doing now? And number 2, I'm sorry, Taylor Swift is one of the biggest selling draws in music right now. And no disrespect to Slayer, because I like Slayer. I'm a pop culture guy. I listen to everything, but let's call a spade here. Go ahead. One is for the underground and one is for the masses. Go ahead.
Yeah, and it's not that. I love him trying to put into a perspective of what in pop culture he pretty much said it, WWE is the Taylor Swift of wrestling. AEW is pretty much the Slayer. All right, well, let's put this into mainstream. In my eyes, WWE could be something like a Grey's Anatomy or a Law and Order. Long term, again, back to big company series that have ran for a long time. Then we could look at AEW as being, I don't know, Pee-wee's Playhouse. We could all look at Tony Khan and say, that's Pee-wee Herman, because it's literally a circus. It's literally a circus, and it's great that you have this thought and you like where you work, and that's cool. Darby is given the opportunities because guess what? People are drawn to him. People are drawn to him much like people were drawn to Mick Foley. He's a daredevil. He's really, really great. He's kind of that hardcore guy that everybody loved watching because you weren't really for certain as to what he was going to do next. And that's Darby. That's pretty much who he is. So in the aspect, I love how he put this into that perspective, because he's not exactly wrong, but they have Slayer does have a following, but sorry, Taylor Swift has a larger following. Saying.
I'll put it like this. Okay, this one will make you laugh, because I'll do the distinguishment between MTV and MTV2. So growing up, 52 to 56 in New York, VH1, MTV, BET, MTV2, Fuse, formerly Much Music. You look at what was on BET at the time. You had your Rap Cities, your 106 and Park with Free and AJ, and you had so many great things like that. Yes. VH1, you had pop-up video on the top countdown. Same with Fuse and Much Music. MTV2. All right. WWE is like TRL, and AEW is like Headbangers Ball.
Good reference. Good. Very, very good reference.
Let's leave it like that. WWE is like TRL with the mainstream, and how a lot of these groups became really well known was from TRL. And then you had MTV2, where you had groups like Trust Company, and you had all these rock groups on there like that were really big, and some that were coming into fruition on that channel. So that's the difference. You had more of the Headbanger style on MTV2, but MTV gave you like the Britneys, the Christinas, the NSYNCs, the Backstreet Boys, the Corns, and all these groups. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's just it. Yes, they're two different companies, and much like they're two different companies, it's great if AEW's storytelling was compelling and interesting, you can draw WWE fans over instead of the usual fans that you get. Yeah, you have your usual fans, but I guess what? You're not getting that many people to come to your shows. And that's a fact.
You look at the attendance, and especially with Arthur Ashe, how it went down this year for Grand Slam. And I mean, again, because you rushed Bryan and Nigel, and you rushed a lot of these matches, and you rushed fucking Will Ospreay. You rushed Will Ospreay and Ricochet because the story is, oh, bro, you got to get some wins under your belt. Ricochet, I'm going to discredit the Casino Battle Royale. This man had 3 fucking matches. He beat Kyle Fletcher, Sammy Guevara, and Beast Mortos. And then Will's like, oh, bruv, you proved it to me. And now I talked to Tony, and we're going to have this match at the Grand Slam after 3 fucking matches.
That's too soon.
I know.
Too soon. This could have been their January match that they were going to have. That's where I think that should have happened.
And I said,
and in all honesty,
yeah.
I don't think the match should go on. I think what should happen is somebody interfere in the match. This way, it doesn't happen, because you're doing this too fast. You're doing it too soon, and you need it to marinate and progress. Because if you don't, this whole week to week concept, it isn't going to fly. You're lucky you're on cable. Because you couldn't do this anywhere else.
So I meant to say, I'm sorry, the 5-year anniversary they're doing Ricochet and Will Ospreay. Still too soon. But my thing with this is like this, and you know why he's doing it, because he's fucking petty. And I'm going to tell you why. October 1st, that Tuesday, is CM Punk. It's next week, ladies and gentlemen. It's CM Punk being the special guest referee for Ethan Page and Trick Williams. Tony is like, you want to work with those bald assholes, Phil? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to put on Will Ospreay and Ricochet, and it's going to be the best star match ever. Super Junior 2016. Tony, nobody knows what that is. Whatever. It's still going to be great. So Tony has to be his petty ass self to get back at CM Punk, because he's on Tuesday, and we're going to do this on Wednesday. There's also the part of Tony Khan's pettiness.
But it again, back to, you're trying to compare. It is the CW, and guess what? People are going to watch it, whether you want to admit it or not. People are going to watch it, and they're not going to tune into AEW. Sorry.
And again, they have great matches, but I've always made this pop culture. All right, we'll go to another pop culture reference, Mr. Paul Morales. I think you'll enjoy this one. 2006, Rocky Balboa. It's the one that's right after Rocky 5. You know, we ended with Tommy Gunn, and then we get to Rocky Balboa, and he's going against Mason the Lion Dixon. The build-up, the quotes. Is it more like the 80s? No, it's actually more like the 70s. No Little Marie. That ain't all right. Then he beats up the guys. He's meeting with the athletic commission. You know, they don't clear him, but he's like, hey, don't I got some rights? It's like, but we're trying to look out for your best interest. And that build, seeing little Marie, like him working at the restaurant, his son is like, it's like, I can't, only reason I'm getting these things is because I'm related to you. I'm getting these promotions and stuff. And then that leads to ain't world and all sunshine and rainbows and that inspiration, all that. This would be like, if you take all of that build up out and the grief he has of losing Adrian and Paulie and everything that surrounds this, right? That's if you take out all of this and you just go right to Rocky Balboa versus Mason the Lion Dixon. That's literally what it would be like.
Essentially, that's why it's like you might as well skip the whole rest of the movie and do that last 20 minutes of whether it's just the boxing match.
Fight. Yeah.
It's just the fight. You might as well just skip everything else. You might as well just do the inspiration quote and then boom, the fight.
It's like,
because that's basically what it is. It's like, it's like you take any movie, any genre, you take any movie and you literally take out, we'll say The Godfather. We'll just take all the way up until Michael Corleone just dies.
Yep. All right. I'm going to do this one because this just passed. I know we're going pop culture here, but you're making me smile with these Godfather references. Very nice.
Thank you.
So, you're welcome. It's like, all right, so I'll go the horror comedy route because this movie just turned, oh my goodness, like over 40 plus years old now. The Lost Boys with Jason Patric, Corey Haim, Corey Feldman. This would be like, forget about the fact that they moved to Santa Carla and he's with Star and he's with Kiefer Sutherland and he drinks the blood and he's making him eat, you think this Chinese food, but he turns into maggots and all this stuff. And him warping into the vampire. He's on the ceiling. The milk spills and he's flying around and the comedy and horror stuff that goes into becoming a vampire. This would just be like skipping all of that. And it's like, oh, Max is the head vampire. Every other vampire is dead. And here's Jason Patric and them just squaring off at the end. And then here comes the grandfather to tell about all the goddamn vampires. That's literally what it would be like. That's literally what it is. Oh,
that's why I'm saying it doesn't make any sense, but hey, you know what? To some people it makes sense, to other people it just doesn't make sense. But
and then we get to the other Darby cliff, and here we go.
5 years. AEW's been around now. AEW Dynamite, 5 years in October. Is AEW in a better place now than it was a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, right now?
Definitely in a better place than it was a year ago.
Okay.
Definitely. Like, it's like
a lot of turmoil.
Yeah,
a lot of turmoil.
But that's the thing is like we go back to the storylines. I feel like a lot, like I said, kind of stopping with the dream matches, and it's more like everything has a rhyme for the reason. And yeah, I think that's better for the wrestlers. That's better for the fans. That's better for everybody. I feel like it feels like, yeah, it's better place than it was, I'd say 1 year ago.
Okay.
I feel it in the back, like the energy in the back. You know what I mean? I just like to, how I like to read the expressions of everybody back there.
5.
No. No. I'm just gonna say no. Just no. No. It's really not. You got rid of that mean.
You can't look, you're trying to base this on him coming back and it was somebody who praised you. But it was a match that you had that he was telling people that you didn't need to do all that in order to get people interested in the match. And I get it. You come from somebody who is like, and I'll take Adam Copeland. He said that they're all of a sudden, we had already said it last week, that they were going to try and do it more story-based, matches or whatever in AEW. Too little, too late.
Yep.
Unless you're going to change the whole concept, the whole mindset of what Tony wants to do, you're not going to get that. Because in essence, what AEW is doing is everything New Japan does. Because in New Japan, there's no weekly show. You just have events. So what you're getting is show. We'll just put on whatever matches, are going out there and whatever matches that are good. Or whatever matches that they think are great, whatever matches they think are good. You know who changed their stance on everything that they're doing? Rossi.
Yep.
And he's changed everything with Marigold because now, guess what? He sees what WWE is doing, and he's taking that concept and doing it in Marigold because he wants to change that perception of what he had in Stardom, because now he wants to create something different. He wants to create something different than I believe he tried to start it in Stardom, but he couldn't get it done because of the backlash or the back from everybody else. But he notices now that he's getting more of a reception than what he was then.
I think it's the formula of quality over quantity and more story driven and not. All right, I'll go to the point where you mentioned it's like New Japan and Wrestle Kingdom. The way he books these pay-per-views, it's like I'm going to do 10 or 11 matches on the main card, and I'm going to do 5 matches on the freaking 0 hour, because that's what Wrestle Kingdom does. You have like 4 matches on their pre-show, and then you have like 11, 12. He legit books these cards like it's a fucking Wrestle Kingdom. It's very New Japan oriented.
And I was just going to ask you. I said, tell me I'm wrong.
No, you're correct, because I've watched Wrestle Kingdom, and I mean, I kind of came late into the New Japan scene. Like, I first started watching it was the first one, the 2017 one, because that was the one that had Cody and Juice and Okada. And I think at the time it was Okada and Naito or whoever it was at the time, but I remember Okada being the main event, being the champion, and that was the one where Cody debuted, and you had a lot of great matches on there. But then you get to 2018, where Jericho came in, and everybody wanted to see Omega and Jericho. Oh my God, Jericho's in New Japan for Wrestle Kingdom, first time since 1998. That match was so influential, and I watched it onward, and I'm like, I've noticed it, because I'm just like, okay, we're gonna load up the pre-show with 5 hours, and then it's gonna be tired because these shows, again, 12 matches. A lot of those matches go like 20, 30 minutes long, and it's like, really. And then, like, there's some have 40 minutes, like Kenny Omega and Okada went to an hour and 5-minute draw to Dominion. Like, it's good, but also at the same time, it's like, all right, I can't. You know what I'm saying? It's good, but it's like, really? We have to go this long? But they're telling a story with the match. Great. Fine. But it's like there's more to it than just the match being the story. And I've noticed that. He's more, I'm going to book every one of my pay-per-views like a Wrestle Kingdom. That's what it is.
And that's essentially why it's different now. Why Paul is doing everything differently is because he doesn't want to do what Vince used to do and stack the card with a bunch of matches, and then them go over, and then you have to shorten this match.
Well,
or you have to shorten this match.
Well, Triple H said it, not to cut you off, but look at what he said at the press conference, man, when he was talking about, you saw WrestleMania 32. Yeah, I know. A lot of people, they were they didn't care about Roman and Triple H because they were on a fucking midnight. You lost the crowd because it was 7. I mean, look at 7, 8 hours. You had the pre-show at like 5 or 6, and then the event started at 7, and it went to fucking 12:30 at night in 2016. He's like, I want to get away from that. I don't want everybody sitting on the best thing that ever happened to WrestleMania was the 2 nights. Like, the 2 nights is what made it. Now they're going to do that with SummerSlam. Like, again, the quality over quantity has helped a lot, and it makes every match that's on the card, whether it be 5 or 6 matches, important instead of just. So that's the difference.
Yeah, and that's what makes it completely different is that WWE, I mean, well, particularly Vince McMahon, all he wanted to do was to stack it into one night. But when he separated it and he ended up in 2 nights, he kind of figured it out. Oh, wait a second, I don't have to do all that. But it's quality over quantity. Mm-hmm. So whereas before it was quantity over quality, because again, you get matches that run over, and then all of a sudden you get small little clips of like 2-3 minutes of a match, and you're like, man, what the hell happened with that? And we've seen that over the years. We've witnessed it over the years. If you've watched WWE and WrestleManias and a lot of their big 4, you already know when you get to those big 4, you already know that those are like they're stacked cards. And then we get 2012 to 2019 to where it was just like a lot of shit. I mean, you got really, really good matches, but you got a lot of shit matches that should have never been on a card. A lot of them could have been on a Raw or episode of Raw or SmackDown.
Well,
but
yeah, and not to cut you off again, and I apologize, folks. I know we're talking over each other.
Stop fucking cutting me off.
Sorry, man. God,
I'm on fire.
Give me some of your thoughts. Okay.
Give me some of your thoughts.
So, all right. I'm sorry, man. I love you, man. But yo, I wanted to add up to your point with the crap that you can go back to it.
Can you bring my chapstick? My lips hurt real bad.
Get yourself a dang quesadilla. So
make yourself a damn quesadilla.
Tina, eat.
Tina, you fat lard, come eat some dinner.
It still holds up 20 years later. Anyway,
Man, I'm sorry. I still love that. I still love that movie, man.
Napoleon Dynamite, aside. Nothing left for me to do but
okay. Continue. I'm sorry about that.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Jamiroquai and his ass. Okay. So we get to what I wanted to add about his crap part was the fact of the matter is this. Well, we mentioned it on the last one. When Tony is booking a 16-man tag match at All Freaking In with Dustin Rhodes and Sammy Guevara and the Dark Order and the Derpa because I gotta get everybody on the card
and everybody on the front row.
Everybody on the front that's the problem. He has to put everybody on the card where not everybody has to be on the card.
But it's the excessiveness of what he puts on. Is like, again, we go back to, I understand you want everybody to participate in these events. I get it. I completely understand it. But it's not necessary. It's like the same thing that they do over in New Japan. I mean, you don't need to have these excessive amount of fucking hours of time. You don't need people sitting in these seats for 7-8 hours just to be there for what?
I'll give a private.
Yeah, it's a good night. It's a good night. Yes, it's well worth the money, but come on, man. I mean,
well, how many times
you don't have? Okay, New Japan has an intermission,
right?
Whereas AEW does not have an intermission. You don't give people time to get up, stretch around, walk around, go to the concession stand, go pee, go to the bathroom or whatever, get some food, come back, get, settle down back in your seats and, relax. Right. No, you don't get that with AEW. It's like boom, 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 boom. I mean,
well, if you look at New Japan, it's like how many matches like this shit. Do I really need to see Eugene?
Maybe Tony's trying to compensate for something.
So
I think you need to focus on the Jaguars. They're 0-3.
Oh!
Oh, by the way, hey, my Steelers are actually undefeated. So
I know, I saw that. Let's go Steelers. Nice. So, I mean, to go on to his point before we get to Yeet, how many times am I gonna have to watch Yuji Nagata beat up a young lion? Like on all of these freaking wrestling. How many times do I gotta see fucking Yuji Nagata beat up a freaking young lion? Like literally, how many times I gotta see Yuji Nagata's 50-plus-year-old ass on there? And then people got mad when he wrestled, was it Moxley on that AEW? And it's like because people. Now, my introduction to Yuji Nagata was when he wrestled Kurt Angle at Global Impact in 2007 for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. Like, with Yuji Nagata, unless you're a diehard wrestling fan of Japan, you don't know who Yuji Nagata is. It's like when Adam Copeland fought Minoru Suzuki, and I love the Murder Grandpa, by the way, but Minoru Suzuki on friggin' AEW. And he's like, oh, you never would have seen any of these matches, says Adam Copeland. Yeah, this is a dream match for a lot of people. Who in their fucking mind said, you know what? I want to see Edge versus Minoru Suzuki. 0. Except for Tony Khan. 0. Okay. All right.
Rant over.
So we move on to the final topic. Not Napoleon Dynamite, but we move on to the final topic. God. We're going to the final topic. God. So, yes, we did mention Braun Strowman and Bronson Reed, the build to the last Monster Standing. I cannot wait for Raw next week. This whole Raw was jam-packed, but the moment of the night, Yeet! Jey Uso after 14 years on the main roster. I was there for the Usos' first pay-per-view match at WWE Fatal 4-Way Nassau Coliseum when it was the Usos and Tamina against the Hart Dynasty and Natalya. 14 years later, Jey Uso and Braun Breaker, an incredible match to end it. Braun Breaker got cocky. He got the spear through the barricade and then the Samoan splash. But here's my problem with you sons of bitches. Oh, Braun Breaker, he's buried and he lost so quickly. Okay. That was anything but a burial for Braun Breaker. Braun Breaker looked strong. he showed his inexperience of the fact that he was too cocky and how he went about it, how he approached it. He kicked out of the military press slam to Jay. He kicked out of the spear. He kicked out of everything. Braun Breaker gave everything he had, but it wasn't enough to put Jey Uso down because his will and his strong and intestinal fortitude got him to that first championship that he's never held, and also first singles championship in 14 years. That was the story. The build-up throughout the night was great. Braun Breaker was great. He's like, I don't care what these people think. I'm going to beat you. Here are the dogs out here in California. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Everything from Jey Uso coming out in that entrance and everybody doing the yeet. Everything from this presentation was fabulous. Braun Breaker, this does not hurt him at all. Not at all.
Not one bit. And the thing is that who cares if he only had so much time, so much time as a champion? It doesn't matter how many days it was.
No.
This wasn't Kane on losing it the fucking next day
to Austin. Yeah,
to Austin. Okay, this wasn't, you know, however many the Big Show only holding it, or Rey Mysterio only holding it for one match. Literally,
Zack Ryder for the Intercontinental title after WrestleMania.
Okay, but we can go on and on for how many people had a short title reigns, but that doesn't. Rey Mysterio is a fucking Hall of Famer.
Yes.
Kane is a fucking Hall of Famer. We can go on look, we can go on and on with everybody who's held titles for a limited amount of time. Chris Jericho.
Yes, the European title.
The European title. Look, we can again back to guys, people who have won titles, lost titles within the matter of days and in a shorter amount of time than Braun did, and had amazing careers. Okay, we can. The point is that dude is young.
He's like
he's not some old man. He's not, you know, he's not in his late 30s. You know, he can come back from this. Yes, we can have a really, really great story with him trying to get that title back the same way he did in NXT, getting the NXT title back. It's just, we like people who are the faces. We like people who are the heels. Look, we could debate this till we're blue in the face. Does it hurt him? No. Does he look strong? Yes. It would have been different if this was Kofi Kingston getting beat by fucking Brock Lesnar.
Oh God.
Okay. Yes, I went there. Look, and it wasn't that. He had a great showing in this match. I mean, without a doubt, one of the best showings that we've seen out of him, you know. And we got oh God, I can't even think of the damn word. We got the longest reign was fucking with Gunther.
Yes,
666 days as champion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it was a great, because he faced so many competitors, including Jey Uso.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he did his job. You know, he did everything he needed to do. But is it going to be the same everyone afterwards? No. Sami Zayn didn't hold it that long. Braun Breaker didn't hold it that long. But does that mean that they're not going to be able to be propelled into that title picture? No. Eventually it'll happen, but give it time. Give it time, people.
Exactly. And a last thing for the time, not Sam, our boy Sam Roberts commented on Jey Uso's win, and here it is.
How would you describe the emotions of what this means?
This is why it's full circle. This doesn't just go back to Jey Uso winning the opportunity to be the #1 contender. This doesn't just go back to Jey Uso beating his brother at WrestleMania. This doesn't just go back to Jey Uso declaring at the beginning of this year that 2024 would be the year that he wins a singles championship. This goes back way further. This goes back to the beginning of the bloodline. This goes back years and years and years ago, when Roman Reigns looked at his cousin and said, "You know what people say when they see you? Which one are you again?" Jey Uso proved which one he is again. He's the Intercontinental Champion. That whole journey was about Jey proving that he could do it without his family, that he could be main event Jey Uso without Jimmy, without the bloodline, without Cody Rhodes as a partner, that Jey Uso by himself was good enough to do it. He starts this yeet movement. Everybody gets behind him. And now look, as we saw earlier tonight, as we saw Cody and Roman meeting on that field and Roman Reigns trying to figure out where he stands. Which member of the bloodline is the one that is holding gold? It's the one that had the courage to go completely independent, and he stands a.
How would you describe?
Excellent.
He ain't lying.
He ain't lying. I think that's the best part of the trajectory. That's the best part of the trajectory. Jey Uso stepping out of the bloodline, showing who he is, much like Sam Roberts said, and he is the Intercontinental Champion. I'm excited for the era of the Yeet reign, Yeet of the Intercontinental Championship.
Next week, I'm wearing my Yeet shirt because you know what? I have to.
All right, now.
Got to do it in honor of Jey Uso.
So next week,
look, man, I am just happy that he won. I'm happy that he got to go yeet to the crowd in Ontario. Too bad I didn't go. I should have went.
How far is that from you?
About an hour and a half.
Okay, well, next time, man. Next time.
With traffic, that's about an hour and a half.
Oh, jeez.
Without traffic, about 45 minutes.
I will say this: no matter where you're traveling to or where you be at, like Sprint Mobile, where you at. Enjoy professional wrestling and enjoy this edition of the weekly review.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Good.
Okay. Sorry.
Right. So
I know that was different. That was Verizon. Yeah, that's on my bad.
Yeah. Okay. So enjoy this edition of the weekly review. And also next week we will be predicting Bad Blood, and we actually know the set matches. Dude, it's starting again. No, it's starting again because next week is freaking Bad Blood. Then after that is Wrestle Dream. So we'll have more predictions, more shows to talk about. Oh my Lord, these gosh darn predictions. So we'll see you next week for that. But with this particular week, Paul Morales, before we close this out, promote the socials. Go ahead, man.
All right, Mr. Michael Larkin. Mr. I got 10,000 freaking social medias. Mr. Podcaster, Mr. Podcast Machine, okay, I can call you all kinds of names. But what I won't call you is a bad friend. Thank you very much, my sir. You can find me right here, Dead Man of RWT, YouTube, TikTok, X. That's where you can find me at. You can find me on the RWT page, of course, on Facebook. The link will be below. All my links to all my social media will be in the link below. And of course, Mr. Michael Larkin, floor is yours.
YouTube, Mike Larkin 92. Subscribe. We are almost to 1K. We are in the 990s region, so we're coming closer to 1K. Check out the YouTube channel, which features the weekly review, Steve and Mike Show, Pop Culture History Podcast, the LFC Podcast, On the Mic with Mike, Uncaged with Daniel Crimmins, Deep Into the Heart of Wrestling with Robert Davis and Nicola McDonald, and so many great shows. And, of course, my appearances on the Max Wrestling Podcast. So you get that on there as well. The shout out to Dazzy Lee for his permission and awesomeness of doing that. And if you want to check out our boys at the Max Wrestling Podcast, go over and subscribe to Max Wrestling on YouTube. So StephenMikeShow.com, LFCFights.com, SM Show 1, MCL92 on Twitter, Larkin_92 and MLarkinMB on Instagram. Links will be in the description, including for Mr. Paul Morales and all the great people that are on this channel. For Paul Morales, my name is Mike Larkin. Thank you for listening to another edition of the Weekly Review. We'll be back next week, and God, give me some
Yeet.
Yeet.
Congratulations, Jay.
Congratulations, Jay. I want some of your tots, though. Give me some of your tots.
Dude, can't you have some of your tots?
God, freaking idiot.